After graduating as a lawyer, I went straight into the Kenyan judiciary. By the way, I have never done work outside being a magistrate or a judge. In fact, my children always tease me and tell me, Mom, you don't know how to do any other job, do you? And I always tell them, try me. So I became a magistrate. I passed through the different levels of magistracy. I finally was promoted to be a high court judge. I served for a very long time as a high court judge. And during that period, when I was a high court judge, I established the family division of the high court in Kenya. It's still up and running. I served in two very important committees. I served in the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child for 6 years in Geneva, going for meetings 3 times in a year. I established the Children's Committee at the African Union level, which I then headed for 5 years. So I diversified quite a bit because I spent a lot of time in the High Court. And I was very, very active in the Girl Guide movement, mentoring young girls who are Girl Guides and Girl Scouts. And finally, I was elevated to the Court of Appeal. I did not serve for a very long time in the Court of Appeal. At the time, that was the highest court in Kenya. The Supreme Court came subsequently with the new constitution, which was promulgated when I had already gone to, joined the International Criminal Court at The Hague. So in the course of all this, my country nominated me to run for the position of Judge of International Criminal Court. What is so interesting is that I was not the first candidate that Kenya nominated that year. A male judge had been nominated ahead of me, and by that time I was finishing off a degree, further studies. In fact, I was at the Fletcher School. Most of it was online course at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, Tufts University in Boston. So most of it was online, but there were 12 months course, 2 weeks beginning we were at the campus. Most of it was online. We went back to the campus midway and finally at the end. So by the time all this was happening, I was now busy defending my thesis at the campus, at the Fletcher at Tufts University. So, I thought that was over, that was done, because I missed the opportunity. But International Association of Women Judges, John wrote to me because I was coordinating the African women judges at that time, and she asked me, can you disseminate this information that International Criminal Court is asking for nominations and women judges must be nominated by their countries. I did as much a dissemination of that information as I could, and I left it at that because I was busy defending my thesis at the Fletcher School. And I was doing all this whilst I was at the Fletcher School. So I completed that, I defended my thesis, and I graduated. I went back home. The court was on recess. That was now August. It wasn't until October the same year, that is several months after, that, and of course the ICC nominations had been closed because it's open for a certain number of months and it's closed. But then the ICC opened for nominations for a further period because they were looking for more candidates from the Asia Pacific. And my country took that opportunity. I think our office in New York took that opportunity to send word home that they needed, that if they wanted to win this position at the ICC, they needed to exchange the candidates because they were not doing very well in New York with the candidate that they had. So one morning I was already robed. I was going to court with my 2 colleagues, male judges, because I was now in the Court of Appeal. And the Ministry of Foreign Affairs called me. And I was surprised when they told me why they were calling me, because they said, listen, can you send us your CV? And we just have had information that you just completed an extra course at the Fletcher School at Tufts University. Because at that time, most judges either those who came who had already done further studies, but most judges were not really pursuing further studies at the time. So I asked my secretary to send them my CV because I had to go into court with my 2 colleagues. And this was on a Thursday, and the following day was Friday. The ministry was again sitting and reviewing which candidate can they send. What was so interesting to me when I learned later was that originally they had 11 names. They had sent 1 name to New York, and there were 10 names left. And all these 10 names were names of men, either male lawyers, professors, but there was not one woman's name. So my name was added to this list, and it made 11 names, and they had to vote. So I was voted, and then they voted another judge. So they sent another male lawyer. They sent 2 names to New York. And it was the New York office, Kenyan Mission in New York, that finally settled for my name. So I always viewed it as God's luck, because I was never the first candidate that the country had. But I was a subsequent candidate that was sent, and the original candidate now had to be withdrawn. Though by that time, his name had already come out on the list of nominees. And so Kenya, the next thing was Kenya withdraws the candidature of so-and-so and replaces it with so-and-so. That is the process that finally brought me to this court, the International Criminal Court. I was up for elections together with so many other judges. In fact, that year, Africa alone had 22 candidates. But at that election, Judge Sanji Monaghan and myself, 2 women judges, both IAWJ members, were elected that year.